This is Brian Gibbons, and this is going to be an exciting video for you. Exciting. It's about our sales presentation, and basically it's for a house that they've tried to sell, they've worked with an agent, and maybe it's an expired listing, or they just don't think they have enough equity in the house to be able to sell the house. So, you basically, you've shaken their hand, you've toured the outside of the property, and you've toured the inside of the property from top to bottom. Okay? And you said, can we just go to the kitchen table and let's just have a chat and see if we can work some numbers. All right? Now, I generally take a legal pad and do this exercise, and what I have behind me is what I put on the legal pad, but it's just, this is really thick lettering, but it basically says list with an agent, or rent, or lease to own. And I tell them there's only 3 positive things you can do. You can either list it with an agent and pay the cost to sell, whatever they are, and then net that money. That's a choice. And that's what a lot of people do. Also, you can rent the property out and get a property manager and pay them a fee to get that done and take the risks of a tenant that's unproven. Or you could use what's legal in this state, and then whatever your state legal things you can do. Most people that can do a lease with an option or a lease purchase, but some states can do contracts for deed or agreement for deed or land contract. Whatever they are, you want to talk about them at this time. This is what the state of Ohio or Pennsylvania or California or Washington State allows you to do. And then let's talk about the negative things before we go through the positive ones. How do you feel about a short sale? Does a short sale, how do you feel it affects your credit? And shut up and talk to them. Now, you should have information about how a short sale affects their credit. You should have that information. If you need that information, contact me and I will show them what happens if you do a short sale. If they have no equity or they're upside down, you could say, well, you could look at a bankruptcy. How do you feel about that? Or how do you feel about a deed in lieu? Or how do you feel about a loan modification? And you need to be able to talk intelligently about that, and we have information that can help you educate the seller on those negative choices. So there's only 3 positive choices. You can either list it with an agent and pay those costs to sell and net that kind of money, and if you have to bring a check to closing, that might be a situation for you. Or you can rent it out to an unproven tenant and deal with evictions or damage or whatever you need to do. Or what the state allows is to help you sell on terms, which is lease to own or some kind of contract for deed or some kind of wraparound mortgage or something like that. Okay? So this is my, I go through these choices and I say, well, let's just try to go through this exercise, and if it makes sense, then we'll get to work for you. And it takes us about 2 months to get this done. And if you want to do it a different way, you can do that too. Okay? So the first thing that I do over here is the cost to sell. A lot of people don't know what the costs to sell are. And I asked them, he says, do you know what the major costs to sell are? And the first cost to sell, of course, is the commission, which is 6%. And that's standard. They're not going to lower that commission. The second cost to sell, you probably heard of, is closing costs. Which are generally about 2%. And I show them in my sales book what an average 2% closing cost looks like, and I show them a HUD one, and I show them the cost to sell for a traditional house. And the last one is the most important big cost to sell is what's called seller's concessions. Seller's concessions. And that can be as much as 6%. And if you, for goodness sake, that's a lot of money, isn't it? To give away your equity. Now, if the property needs some work or repairs or whatever, we'll talk about that, but you know, that's to get top dollar for your house, okay, if it's in perfect shape. If you got a crappy kitchen or bathrooms or whatever, you're going to have to take away from the comps value. So if all the comps come in at 200,000, you know, you got a bad kitchen or a bad bathroom, you're going to have to give them some kind of a credit. But let's just say that the house is perfect and it's in really good shape, doesn't need any repairs. There's a couple of other things. Holding costs are generally about 3%. And holding costs mean from the date that they put the offer in to the end of escrow and you get a check, that's about a 3% of the value of the house because you have to pay those monthly costs to be able to hold it and keep that thing vacant. All right? So you can see this thing's building up. So, you know, we've got 6 and 2 is 8 and 6 is 14 and another 3. Mr. Seller, you know, that's 17% of the value of your house. I mean, 10% of the value of your $200,000 house is $20,000. So we're looking at about $35,000 as far as what it costs to sell your house. Well, how much do you owe against the house? So let's say you said, I don't have very much equity, I owe $190. So if we can get top price at $200, we're going to have to bring a big check to the closing table, aren't we? And that size of the check is a lot. Let's just say that that amount of money that you're going to have to bring to the table, you know, is $34,000 if you get top price for your house. That's just to get rid of it. And I write that down there at the bottom. Well, I really want you to consider looking at these other two columns. All right. So let's just say that my research, according to market rents, have come into this property around the value for your $200,000 house about $1,500 a month. And at 10%, the fee for this, for the property manager, is going to be about $150 a month. And then you're going to need maintenance. If it all goes smoothly, you know, you might have to spend, I don't know, a couple $1,000s a month on maintenance. I'm sorry, a year. A couple $1,000s a year on maintenance on the house. But that's an option. How do you feel about having a tenant in your property? And then they'll talk about it. I said, well, it might work out for you. I don't really know how you feel about renting it out with a manager, but listing it and losing $34,000, I think a lot of people in your situation, especially in this economy, they need to retain as much cash as possible. So let me talk to you a little bit about leasing to own. What we're going to do is we're going to try to get a little bit more than this $1,500 a month, maybe $1,600 a month on this lease to own. And these people, how we make our money, Mr. Seller, is to be able to, the fee is paid by the buyer. So the buyer that moves in on lease to own, they're going to pay us a fee, and it doesn't cost you anything. And our big number one focus is to be able to net you the most amount of money. So let's say, you know, your comps are coming in right at $200,000. We would sell this house for about $207,000. And you, Mr. Seller, would net the $200,000. And this amount of money would come to our company, the $7,000. All right? That's roughly how the numbers are going to work. Okay? We do use a rent credit system to get them to pay their rent on time, but this is your net number. So you can see that renting it out are these numbers, and over here the cost to sell is going to be about $34,000. That's rough. but this way you're going to get more money doing it this way. So let me just tell you some other quick questions, and I have some literature I'm going to leave with you. It takes us about 2 months for us to get this person in your house. Over here it takes 3 to 6 months. And lastly, we're getting somebody that's going to love your house and wants to buy it, so there's less risk over here. In fact, in all of our experience, we've never had anybody damage the house that have been on a lease to own, because they love the house and they want to own it. And you've got a lovely house and you'd want somebody that loves it, wouldn't you? So in order to get started to do this, if you want to go that route, we would need to basically give you the terms of our offer. And we would write it out in a letter of intent, and it would spell out the lease would be about $1,600 a month, the purchase price would be about $207,000, and you would net about $200,000. How do you feel about that offer, Mr. or Mrs. Seller? And that's it. There's objections that come up and all the rest of this other stuff, but I believe in this presentation will help you, especially if you're new to real estate investing, keep it simple for the seller, especially if they have urgency, if they have to move, and especially if they need speed and they need it done fast. We have a great opportunity for you guys to make about 3% of the value of the house, which is approximately $6,000 on a $200,000 house. Wouldn't that be great? Okay, I want to thank you so much for listening to this presentation. This is Brian Gibbons with REIskills.com, helping you, real estate investors, learn lease to own and make money. Okay? There's over 20 million houses out there that have very little equity. They can't sell with an agent. They don't want to rent it out, and they need to feel that you can help them with their situation. All right, I'll see you on the other side. If you want more information, make sure that you opt in. I want to thank you so much.